Hello, this is Anthony from AC Guitar Tuition, and in this video we're going to be looking at different approaches to playing over the 12-bar blues chord progression. But before we get started, it's going to be worth mentioning that the backing track that I'll be using for the entire lesson is one that I've recorded myself, the link to which can be found here. So what do I mean by different approaches? Well, when it comes to playing over the 12-bar blues, a lot of guitarists will stick with the minor pentatonic scale. That's a perfectly good approach. A lot of brilliant music has been written in that way, but in this lesson I'm assuming that you're quite well versed in playing minor pentatonic scale and perhaps you want to approach things from a different angle. So in this video I've got 3 approaches in particular that aim to help break you out of that minor pentatonic rut. So enough with the chatting and let's get cracking. The first approach is playing using arpeggios. Now, when it comes to arpeggios, a lot of guitar players tend to lump them in with sweep picking, when in fact they're a lot more versatile than that. And if any of you listen to any jazz, which you should, then you'll already be aware of just how versatile they are and how amazing they sound. If anyone's unfamiliar with what an arpeggio is, all you're doing is taking a chord and playing the notes of it individually. In this instance, we're playing a 12-bar blues chord progression in the key of C, so you're going to need chords 1, 4 and 5, but in this progression I've substituted them for the dominant 7th equivalents. So 1 chord is a C dominant 7th, 4 chord is a F dominant 7th, and 5 chord is a G dominant 7th. So all that you really need to do is analyse the notes of each of those chords and then play them in succession. So an example, the C dominant 7th chord, you're playing the root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th. In the F, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th. And then in the 5th, the root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th. And these can be found anywhere up and down the neck, and the more places that you know them, the better. And some really good practice is to literally play the arpeggios straight up and straight down over the progression, so it'll sound a bit like. And so on. And then what will happen is, once you've played that loads and loads of times, you'll start naturally coming up with your own variations of it, be it rhythmic or melodic. So an example is where you may have started off playing, you might start playing a swing rhythm, and then once you've played some interesting rhythms, you're going to want to play some interesting melodies too, so you're not always just going to go straight up and straight down. It's going to sound boring, so you're going to want to mix it up a bit. So I think that this is a really good approach. It's a bit of a jazzy approach to playing over what's more like a blues piece of music. But anyway, here's just a quick example of what you can do with arpeggios. Approach is the modal approach, and just like the arpeggiated approach, you're going to want to first find out what kind of chords you're playing over, but we already know that we're playing over dominant 7th chords, the degrees of which are root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th, so there's only one of the modes of the major scale that fits that chord, and that's the Mixolydian scale. For those of you who aren't aware of it, here it is. First off, the C Mixolydian scale for our C dominant 7th on the backing track. So we're on fret 8 of the low E, and it's 8, 10, 12. Then it's 8, 10, 12 again, 8, 10, 12 again, then it's 9, 10, 12 on the G, then it's 10, 11, 13 on the B string, and then it's 10, 12, 13 on the high E. We already know that the fourth chord is the F dominant seventh, the root of which is up here on the 13th fret, but it's not going to be practical to play the same shape starting with the root on the low E. It's a bit of a big leap, so we're going to learn the Mixolydian scale with its root starting on the A string. We're on the 8th fret, and it's 8, 10, 12. Then on your D, it's exactly the same, 8, 10, 12. Then on your G, it's 8, 10, 12 again. On your B, we're playing 10, 11, 13. Then 10, 11, 13 on the E. Once you've got that shape, just move it up 2 frets. So its roots start on the G, and then you're playing the G Mixolydian scale. Once you're really acquainted with these fingerings for these scales, then comes exactly what you did using the arpeggios, and that's just playing them straight up and straight down over the backing track. So for the first few times it will sound boring, you'll just be going. And so on. But then, when you start playing that and you play it loads of times, you'll start introducing your own rhythmic ideas again, because you're just going to get bored. You're going to start developing things like just things like that, just little rhythmic ideas you'll just naturally come up with. Now here's just a little clip of me playing, just to show you what kind of effects you can get from using the Mixolydian scale. The third approach is a chordal approach, soloing using chords. When it comes to chords, I think a lot of beginning guitar players tend to think about all these open chords at the bottom of the neck down here when you're learning all your beginner songs, but just like arpeggios, all it takes is analysing the notes that you're playing, and then you can find those anywhere on the neck. But instead of playing them as arpeggios, play them as chords. So we know our one chord is a C dominant seventh chord, so the notes of which are C, E, G, B flat. Just find those notes somewhere else on the neck. So up here on the 15th fret for your root, and then the 14th fret for the E, then the G is on the 12th fret of the G string, and then on the 11th fret you've got your B flat on your B string. So the idea now is to, instead of play those as an arpeggio, let's play them as chords. But I think that this chord is a little bit too big for any kind of solo purpose. It's just a little bit too, it's too many notes, it's just not to my taste. So what I usually do is I'll omit some of the notes, usually the 5th or even in some cases the root. So again, for a C dominant seventh, here's a position that I find really useful. We're up on the 12th fret, second finger playing the G on the G string, first finger on the B flat or the 11th fret of your B string, and then your third finger is playing the E on the 12th fret of your E. So if we analyse the notes that I'm playing the G, which is the 5th of C dominant 7 chord, I'm playing the B flat, which is the flattened 7th, then I'm playing the E, which is the third. So you'll notice that I'm not even playing the roots, I'm letting the bass guitar and the rhythm guitar take care of that. So the listener knows that when I play this chord, the root is down here. But of course you can find your C dominant 7th chord anywhere on the neck to whatever suits your taste. I just happen to really like this sound. Once you've found this chord, you can do exactly the same with your 4 chord and your 5 chord. One good shape that I find for the F dominant 7th or the 4 chord is barring on the 10th fret of your top 3 strings and then putting your first finger on the 11th fret. And then moving that shape all up 2 frets for the G dominant 7th. So how am I going to use these chords to solo? Well, it's all about rhythm, and just like before, I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to say. I want you to practice this, just literally. Just really simple, really boring, and then let the rhythms naturally flow. Then once you've got used to doing your rhythms, doing some crazy... then you can start doing something which I find really cool, and that's just going up and down fret to the neighbouring notes. They're not in key strictly, but they sound amazing, I think. I think that sounds really cool, and you can slide up to the notes too. All you've got to do is take your chord, analyse what notes you're playing, find them anywhere else on the neck to somewhere where you think sounds cool, use your semitones going up and down, slide up to them, create variations. You really are completely limited only by your imagination when you're soloing by chords. And here's just a little snippet again of what kind of ideas you can come up with when you're soloing using chords. Hopefully you'll have learned a couple of new approaches to one of the world's most common chord progressions, but of course there are millions of other approaches, and if any of you have got any, then I'd love to hear them, so send me a video response or comment in the box below. The idea now is, once you're well versed in all 3 approaches, is to stick them all together into one big super solo. So for the end of the video, I'm just going to do exactly that. I'm just going to throw all the ideas that I've discussed into one big solo for you. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.